Welcome to Virgo with the sun shifting into Libra week. Autumnal equinox here for us northern hemisphere peeps. So we're going to talk about that this week. That's a huge shift. That is a world point in that 0 degree, the equinoxes and the solstices, and that shift and the energy that creates as we shift, whether you're southern or northern hemisphere, going towards winter or summer. It is, well, fall equinox, autumnal equinox, or spring equinox. Either way, it is a shift into a whole different way of being. So I think that's an important piece that we'll touch in on, not just the Libra component, but also the energy within our bodies and what it means. So I think like the overall themes of the week are we're into Mercury retrograde now. We are now over a week in, 10 days into it. We're halfway through, almost, not quite, but we're about halfway through. And what is showing up for us? What are our Mercury retrogrades can create frustrations? That's what I wanted to, bring is like, what's the frustration? What's that itch that I'm like having a hard time scratching? I'm having a hard time getting to on my back. I can't quite figure out how to get to it. What is that thing that's making me slow down enough to have to contemplate what it is that I'm doing? What is really going on as we roll right into this week, pull up the chart, is Mercury retrograde here at 4 degrees Libra has been opposing Jupiter pretty much since it went retrograde. However, it's exact degree now. So I have talked about the storyteller. What are the stories we are telling ourselves? With Mercury in Libra, very busy trying to figure out like, how do I balance this Jupiter energy? This Jupiter energy, which is more expansive, has a bigger vision, isn't super into details. It will be when it moves back into Virgo, which is later in the week, or next week, actually. And so I think one of the things is like the storyteller piece, but also that expanded vision may be being contained right now, which kind of pisses Jupiter off. But there might be a reason for that. There might be a re-looking at what were those huge details. We were like, yeah, this is great. This is the best idea. And now you're having to kind of reconfigure those ideas a little bit and shape them a little bit better. Hopefully for the greater good. Could also be an interesting relationship thing. Mercury in Libra opposite Jupiter in Aries is definitely, it's also can be a thing about how are we resolving conflict? How did we, when we had a conversation back in August, when it was in the shadow period, are we in a resolution mode? Are we able to find a more common philosophy? Jupiter rules philosophy. So are we able to find a more common philosophy of, I love you and I don't agree with you? How are we able to get really present with that kind of energy and not get so nitpicky? To be really careful as we finish up this Virgo energy. Virgo energies can be very nitpicky. That works really well when you need to get stuff done. When you are following my husband around, like picking up after him as he goes, that's not so good. So, there's a place for Virgo exactness, and there's a place for Virgo not to be exact or to stay in their own lane is what I like to say. So I think with this Mercury opposite Jupiter too is Jupiter gets really excited about something. So if the plans or ideas or execution of something is not going the way that you hoped it would, then don't give up. It just might look different than you originally thought. So, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. Like, don't take that Virgo like, wrong. Like, if it doesn't look this precise, then it must be wrong, or we're just going to throw the whole idea out. Allow it to go through this metamorphosis in this time frame. But recognize that you're frustrated by it. Just, it's okay. That's cool. We're good with that. But don't necessarily give up, because the idea may be awesome, or the whole thing could be awesome. It just might not look like what you personally wanted it to be with your teeth grinding. Another beautiful thing about this time frame is the sun is in exact trine to Pluto. So Pluto's in Capricorn at 26 degrees. The sun is at Virgo at 26 degrees on this day. I love this energy. Pluto literally looks like, when you look at certain charts, it looks like a P, which stands for power. So where are we taking, where are we, it has a lot of momentum. And in that trine aspect, again, it really supports that ease, not necessarily ease, but it's supportive. So that ability to be able to be like, I have the energy to push through these challenges that are being presented in this Mercury opposite Jupiter situation. And down here, I have the energy. It is a little bit like a combustion engine of like I think I can moving forward. So even if you're hitting snags, even if you're hitting snafus, even if you're like getting a little bit frustrated, take a deep breath and recognize that you have the power and you are supported in that energy. The other thing about Sun trine Pluto is the ability to look at under the hood. So if there's something where you're hitting a snag, look under the hood. Don't just get frustrated on this, superficial level. Pluto takes us under the hood to be able to, or into the underworld, to be able to look at like, what's the underlying common denominator here? What is a fear? Pluto would really, it would expose some fear. Pluto would expose anything shadowy, like my sniffer is up and maybe that person I'm trying to partner with doesn't have my best interest, or I don't have their best, maybe we're just not meant to be. And so those are things that could be really coming up during this time frame, and allow it. Like go down there, dig deep, root around in the root cellar and bring it up to the sunshine. That's what the sun wants you to do, but Pluto needs to root around in that root cellar, as we call them back in New England, root around in the root cellar and bring it up. Like this, I guarantee will be when we're harvesting our carrots and our beets, which are under the dirt. We're going to bring them up, we're going to wash them, and we're going to eat them. Right. So like that is a very basic example of that harvest kind of thing with Virgo. So paying attention to that. Also on this day, which will also be a theme of the week. Both of these are themes of the week. The sun will move into Libra. So the sun trine Pluto has been in play. This Mercury opposite Jupiter has already been in play. We're just continuing on in this theme and looking at it from maybe a little bit of a different perspective. Venus in Virgo over here, Miss Venus, is trining Uranus up here in Taurus. They're in an exact trine also. So again, very supportive. So one of the things that I thought about was that Venus, who moves pretty quickly, she only stays in a sign for about 3 weeks unless she's retrograde. And so she just squared Uranus. So now she's in a supportive aspect with Uranus, this blue trine right here. And just back on August 27th, which was around that new moon, she was squaring Uranus. So one of the things I was thinking about, to give a personal example, and I also talked with a friend about the other day, is money. Venus rules our money. And so I actually had a friend ask me, like, what was going on that weekend? She's talking about the weekend of the 27th in this last week around money. She's like, I have been having to chase down people paying me. And I said, well, this is money. This is Venus square Uranus, people who are avoiding paying their bills or their invoices or whatever it is. And, so there's some things like that. For me, unfortunately, Venus tends to show me where I overspend. Or where I make a dumb financial mistake. Not a big deal, but like, where I went and bought something and then I was like, that was definitely not worth what I paid for it. And so those kinds of things. So I'm paying attention to that. And how can I right the ship? And with this Earth energy of Venus and Virgo, Earth, with Uranus and Taurus, Earth, how can I get more practical around future, like even planning out the rest of my year, planning out the rest of my budget, both for work as well as for personal? This is a great time to be looking at that kind of thing. And what do I want to attract? What kind of clients? This is also a relationship situation. So what kind of clients do I want to attract for the rest of the year? How do I want to package my business? What do I want it to look like? And to be able to think outside the box. Again, both Uranus rules both thinking outside the box and future pacing. So this is about thinking the future, planning out your money because of Venus and Virgo, and planning out the attraction component of how you want to attract abundance versus scarcity, and attracting this just this different relationships, potentially even meeting someone different, or having a different relationship with that. So looking at yeah, what are we creating structurally? Can we afford it? And do we have the right relationships to support it? Those are big energies for this week and pretty much the major themes of the week. Because again, on Thursday, is it Thursday? Yeah. On Thursday, it's not quite the right, it'll be later in the day on Thursday, but the sun will move into Libra. So officially fully in on Friday, the 23rd, the sun will move into Libra. And so this is also what Libra looks at. Libra looks at what I love to look at with the sun in Libra, and what I've really started to play with Libra is always looking about how things balance. So for instance, yes, we look at how we are balancing, literally rules the scales. So how we are balancing our time and energy. That's one thing. How we balance our time with others versus our time with ourselves. Libra is literally the beginning of turning towards the dark in the northern hemisphere. So we are looking at, okay, here comes winter. The leaves are changing pretty much everywhere. This is like the big month where things really start to, especially where I live, where things really start to go dormant. And because by the time we hit Scorpio, in my world, the leaves are down, everything's done. It's done in my part of the world in Colorado. So this is the time where it's like, I feel a little bit of that speed up energy of like, oh my God, we got to get all this stuff done. You got to get your outdoor furniture in, you got to do all these things to really get that energy. So we're trying to find that balance and harmony while also saying, okay, can I just sit for a moment and appreciate how beautiful this is instead of scrambling, feeling that scramble energy. Libra energy is cardinal. So this is initiating energy. So what is it? Is it that we're trying to initiate into knowing that we're moving towards the dark time of year, knowing that we're moving towards that more internal, partially part of our internal time of the year. So what is that balance? The other thing about Libra is these are the designers. So they design everything. They could be scientists, so they're designing, things within the science world, but they're also interior designers, graphic designers, and their whole world. I always say to Libra energy, like if they walk into an office or a home or a doctor's office or anywhere, and there isn't a symmetry to the environment they're in, it really distracts them. It can be very discombobulating, and it can make it very challenging for them to think because the environment is not in sync. So this is a really interesting thing to think about and to notice for yourself, whether you have a Libra energy or not. Everyone's got some kind of Libra energy, but does it bother you? If it does, you probably have a little bit more Libra energy in your chart. If it doesn't, then that's fine too. That's probably easier actually. But just know that for Libras, if there is a picture off balance and you are trying to talk to them and their eyes keep moving to the picture, just let them fix it. Just let them do it. Or if they're like, have you ever thought about putting this here and that there, like in your home? Let them do it. It's one of their biggest gifts to the world because their goal is to create symmetry. This can also be a same thing with conflict resolution. I'll talk about this more as the month goes on. I actually have a podcast I'm about to listen to because I really wanted to get present and take notes around it. But this piece of conflict resolution, the misnomer of Libra energy is that they run away from conflict. That's actually not their purpose in the world. Their purpose is actually to stand really grounded and present in the conflict and be able to talk to somebody with grace and beauty. That's those are words I use with Libra energy, is grace and beauty. And so it's more about like, how can we create harmony knowing that we don't agree on something? How can I say, I love you and it's okay that we don't agree? That's such a big human skill that we are currently not doing very well out there. How can we still be in love or still have respect, even just be respectful and understand that we don't have the same agenda, or we don't have the same belief system? We've got some pretty big things up here in the US as far as what we do and don't believe in. And how do we continue to be able to have that resolution, even though we don't agree on something? It's a really big deal for this. So the spring equinox here on Thursday is equal parts day and night, right? So we are skirting that balance beam of like equal parts day and equal parts night. And after today, we have more night than we got day. So in the northern hemisphere. And so that's a big deal for us. And we know that on our internal landscape, even if we don't recognize it consciously, it's happening and we feel it on the unconscious. So there's that. The other thing that's interesting is that Mercury's retrograde and Mercury and the sun on Friday the 23rd are coming together at 0 Libra. So Mercury is about to enter and will do so on the next day. We'll enter back into Virgo and spend a few weeks back there. But in the meanwhile, on this day, Mercury enters the heart of the sun. It does what we call, it combusts the sun. So on this day, Mercury basically goes into the heart of the sun and finds out what is Libra at 0 degrees Libra. This is a really huge thing because 0 Libra is such a transitional point for the world and for each of us. So to have Mercury leaving Libra to go back into Virgo, but being like, what do I need to know about grace and beauty as I head back into Virgo and I get focused again on precise and exact? How can I have that kindness and that grace for myself and for others as I go back and I review some very Virgo energy, money, preciseness, precision, health, work, service, that kind of thing? How can I carry this Libra energy back into Virgo? So this is a really interesting day for them to do this. So just, paying attention to how this is happening. Also on this first day of Libra, the sun goes exact opposite Jupiter. Not exact, I'm sorry. Jupiter's at 4 degrees Aries and the sun is at 0 degrees Libra. So that is almost 180 degrees. But it isn't what we call orb. And so the sun opposite Jupiter is doing what I talked about earlier about where am I doing something? Where am I, expanding too much? Where am I over? OVER in capital letters. Where am I overdoing, overspending, over blah, blah, blahing, over sharing information? Where am I making these videos too long? Watch the spending and overexertion of our life force, because this is the sun. So the sun is our life force. So where are we overdoing this sunny part? Are we being too giving? That's one of Libra's hardest things that we work with during Libra month, is that they're like, sure, sure, sure. When inside they're going, oh no, 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 I don't want to do this. Because what ends up happening is Libra will end up getting mad. They have a temper. So pay attention, especially during this week, and I'll talk about it in the next week video too. Pay attention that you're not saying yes when you really mean to say no. Libra, that's one of your hardest things you do. You say yes when you want to say no. So pay attention to that, because anything you commit to in this time frame of like the 22nd through the 27th or so, it's gonna come back around to you later, sometime in this month, where you might be like, ah, and then you get frustrated and it could end up coming out on somebody. This could also be a time where you said yes before and it comes out and you're like, no, I really don't want to do that. So this is something to pay attention to. I'll talk about it more because it's Libra month. It's a whole month long. And the last thing I want to show is Venus is opposite Neptune on this weekend. This is such a beautiful, again, there's been a lot of Neptune in the last few weeks. We've talked about the daydreaming component. When we add Venus to this, she's really looking at, she's thinking more about beauty. How am I beautifying something? How am I softening? Here's a word I want to use with this. How am I softening an environment, something in my house? Do I have too many hard edges? Do I need to soften it with some pillows or something, a blanket or something like that, or something more circular versus hard, round, like something round versus square, if that makes sense. The other piece I think about with this is softening. This can help with that relatable piece, that relationship piece. She can bring in that energy of how am I softening in my relationships? How am I having some grace and allowing more beauty into this relationship that has maybe had a few hard edges or something. And then again, because it's Neptune, it could also be, we'll have to be careful of where we are being deceived. September 24th, that's the end of the month. The first thing that just popped in my head is like signing a new lease, right? Well, it's also Mercury retrograde or something, and making sure that this is a good time actually to make sure that if you are signing contracts, you're really reading the contracts. This is not a time, now that Mercury is back in Virgo, this is not a time to not make sure you're reading those contracts. Read every word and make sure that there's no disagreements in there. And if there is, then you just talk about it, like get together and actually talk about it. Because this could also be a time where it can bring up a little bit of delusion and fear. Venus, Neptune actually can create some fears, it can create some strange dreams, it can create some prophetic dreams, but can also create some nightmares. So just paying attention to all of that and taking a look at keeping perspective, I guess I would say on that. I just heard this quote the other day. Carolyn Casey is an awesome astrologer, an elder, and her quote was, "Imagination lays the tracks for the reality train to follow." So I think that follows up on what I was talking about last week and this week is how do we bring that imagination into reality? How do we take that, the beautiful daydreams and make it practical? Like bringing that wisdom together is really a beautiful thing. You just have to watch for a few speed bumps along the way of fears or deceit. Will be the big thing for this week. So that's it for this week. Hope that was helpful, and I'll see you again.